Sai Ram, dear all. You know, it's been a long journey with Swami. And at times I think about this, and my technical bent of mind always comes in the way of saying why, how, and what does it mean? And that has actually sort of taken me in my entire journey through Sai. So the first meeting, and I'll just spend a few minutes on it because I think it's always relevant as to how some things begin. And a part of me always says, there is something called innocence. And the innocence that happens in a child is because they have an open mind. And the minute the mind is closed, that's when experiences just become anecdotal and meaningless. But I really, really believe that Swami is everything. And when I say everything, what does it really signify? It's been said that not even a blade of grass will quiver without his will. The question is, a lot of spiritual people will say the same thing too. But do we understand the depth and the meaning of such an expression? And I thought I will take you through my journey, at least for a few minutes, and speak of how Swami touched me and impacted me. So the journey begins when I was a teenager in school. And, typical mindset is you are dished out information and you assimilate that information and you process that information and you get a score, and at the end of which either you graduate or you fail. Frankly, those things didn't bother me at all. I just went to school because I think I enjoyed it. And, you also come to a point in school, and the school that you go to has a lot to do with how you begin to think and what you kind of process. So one of the things that happened was in our class of moral science, we learned about all the religions of the world. It was fantastic because I was already in love with God. I know that for a fact. And the background that I came with were, also very influential. My parents were very spiritually minded, but I never heard my dad or mom ever say, it's got to be this way because we are this. It was always, we do this because it's the right thing to do. And so with that said, I was in Bangalore because I hailed from Karnataka. And what happened was I had to come back to Delhi. And this time I was doing a solo journey, which was unusual. Typically, we all went as my mom and I would go because my dad was too busy at work. And on this trip, my uncle dropped me off at the train station, and I got into the train, and it was a first-class coupe or coupe, whatever you want to call it. And there was an elderly gentleman, and my uncle came and dropped me off and said, to the gentleman as well, hey, take care of this kid, and he's going to Delhi. And so that was it. And he also gave me a couple of comic books and one magazine called the Illustrated Weekly of India. That magazine and the article that I read and I processed had the profound influence on me for the rest of my life. I read this article about Swami, and it said, one sentence, and that was, without his will, nothing can happen. Swami went one step further and he said, people come here to see me and they take pictures of me. Little do they realize that it is I that decides if I'm going to come in the picture or not. And as a youngster, when I read that, first thing that happened to me in my head was, come on, Swami, I mean, you got to be kidding. I know I can take pictures, and I know I'll take a good picture. And I fell in love with him. It was too good and rosy an article. And so as soon as I read that article, and this uncle also that next to me, whom I don't remember his name, is irrelevant, he spoke of Swami as well. He said, my son, he graduated, and the typical Indian mindset, first class first. And I was a little nervous because never had I ever thought that I have to graduate with a first class or a distinction. It was irrelevant in my head. It was more to go to school, to acquire the knowledge and process it. And lo and behold, when he told me that, I said, wow, that's impressive. He's telling me all these good things about how Swami influenced his son. And so I said to myself, when I go home, I'm going to tell my dad and mom about Sai Baba, and that we should put him on our, vacation list. We should go and see him. And my parents were very open-minded. Every summer and winter, we would go to a place called Shimla or Simla or whatever that is, and or Missouri, because it would snow and we would enjoy it. But summer times, my dad would take us around to spiritual sightseeing, and it was very meaningful for me as a growing child. So lo and behold, my dad had already been massaged by Swami in a different light. I didn't even have to break the news to him. Somebody at work during the same week had approached him and said, Mr. Rama Rao, have you ever been to Whitefield and seen this holy man called Sai Baba? And, we had gone to so many Swamis, I can't even make a list. Everyone was charged, by the way. And so I said, great. And so we drove to Bangalore because that was quite unique. And I said, let's go and experience Lord Sai. And I was thrilled. And I took with me my cameras. And actually, I was a pretty avid photographer. I learned at school how to take pictures, process pictures by myself, use the dark room. And I told myself, Swami, I'm coming and I'm going to take pictures. I took a movie camera with me. I took my still camera with me. I had color film in it, and I enjoyed it. I went to see Swami with my dad. I'm still a young guy. You got to bear that in mind. So we got, that time in Whitefield, positioned right at the front. I think there were only 3 deep anyway. So as I sat there, Swami comes right out and came straight to me, and he touched me on my forehead and told my dad, I think he told him, because he made a loud statement, Bangaru. And I didn't pay attention because I had not heard about all these expressions and things of that nature. And then he talked, a little bit to my dad as well. And that escapes me because it was not relevant. To me, that's one thing that I've learned. I could be in the presence of Swami. Swami could be giving lectures after lectures, but it has no impact and I have no memory. But the guy next to me or the lady next to me, if you will, of course, that never happens in Prashanti. You're always segregated. It brings and draws attention, tremendously. So I took pictures of Swami as he was walking, all of that good stuff. I took movies first because there were no restrictions whatsoever. And then we went under this tree where we were all parked. And, things unfold. And I didn't know what to expect. They sang songs. I had never heard those songs before. And I took pictures like crazy. And I had them processed. And these were actually slide films. Those days it was either Kodak or Orwo. And this one happened to be Orwo. And as soon as the things came from the lab, I looked at it and I said, oh, good exposure. I could even see the Arati plate and I could see the lamps. I didn't pay any attention whatsoever. And that was essentially a lost episode. Beyond that, I didn't even think. But my parents were now entrenched deeper with Swami. And so my mother, as would be expected, typically she starts getting worried and excited, saying, you're going to graduate from high school. Where are you going to go? And typical Indian families, and I'm saying this in a very loving context, they will always compare you and say, look at this guy and look at that boy. And it was always one family that was, meaningful to us. And that was my cousin. And they always put my cousins up there and said, see, he got into IIT. To be honest, I didn't care. And I told myself, I will go where I need to go. Why do I have to worry about this? And, there are people with influence. I didn't care about any of those things. And just as an anecdotal thing, I loved my school and I loved the teachers I had. And few teachers have had such strong impact on my character. I always looked up to them. And so I did what every student does. I wrote my entrance exam and I had done this thing called a Science Talent Search exam. And fortunately for me, I got in and I was interviewed. And so I was told that I could go for a bachelor's, master's, and PhD given by the government of India. And it'll be a good pathway. And then came magically the results of IIT. That is another story I can take you through, but time won't be sufficient to disclose in full detail the way Swami wanted me to appreciate it. But the bottom line is I had gotten into IIT as well. And so then came the day when I had to make a decision. So which campus are you going to go to? Having lived in Delhi, I wonderful, but I had made up my mind I want to go and study metallurgy. And metallurgy was not something that was offered at Delhi IIT. And so I took off to Madras, and that's where I took my self to. But the reason why I'm saying this is my mom actually prayed to Swami. And then she came and told me one morning, in my prayer today, Swami told me that you are going to go to this institution. And I said, how did you know? She said, well, at the prayer, and this is something that I don't practice, but it is practiced quite often. They write chits and they put the chits by Swami. And guess what happened? I put the chit and one chit flew back at me. And in that it said, not to worry, he's going to study at this place. And I said, whatever it is, it is. And why fear, And I think this is where Swami's lessons always come in, which is why fear when I am here? But to be in that boat, you have to imbibe his teachings at the level that is appropriate and meaningful. And that is what I give credit to Swami. I feel Swami tells all of us, I am God too, but I never have realized it. But occasionally, he gives me a little bit of a light that says, you are divine as well. And I can go through some of these exercises because as a scientist, that's what I do. And in fact, I find my wife very valuable because we kind of air these things out and say, what is the significance of this statement? And how does it impact me as a devotee? Because I would love to remain at his feet as a devotee, and I'm happy with it. I'm not trying to equate myself to him. That would be stupid. So in one of my prayers, as we see, we always say we offer ourselves at the humble, self at the lotus feet of Bhagavan. One morning when I was saying that, Swami came back to me and said, do you know what lotus means? And of course, being technical, I said, Swami, a lotus by virtue and nature, nothing sticks to it because you have what's known as nanotechnology, and that essentially repels the water. He says, lotus is Lord of the universe Sai. That thing pounds on my head. So every morning when I pray, I remind myself to Swami, I'm at your lotus feet because I've understood that he is my all. If you get him, nothing else is left. You don't need anything anymore. But, that's been my kind of saga all the time. I put questions to him like crazy. He knows that because nothing escapes my mind without thinking, even for a moment, for his love and affection. Because if you have him in your pocket, everything goes very well. Everything goes very well. And I can take you through this exercise where even in the world of technology that I am in, how he has come and helped me. He gives me the answers even before a question is even brought up by even the whoever that is in the organization. He's already taught me and he said, you know what? This is the answer. Just go do this and everything will be well. So much so that even the so-called the leadership team, there comes a point where there is no distinction between one and the leadership team because I'm one of them. But the same token, we have a CEO, and the CEO would joke around me all the time because I would tell him about Sai Baba. I was not worried about telling him, saying, my Sai tells me this, and he would say, he gives you ash. And once he joked around with me saying, do you know so-and-so, he smokes like a chimney? He produces ash too. I said, come on, this is holy ash. That is useless ash, right? So I've had this rapport with my folks at work, and I don't have any barriers to, no, you won't do this. But I will put Swami always in the right light because I think he actually deserves that. So one of the things that I think is relevant to this is the story of a birthday celebration that we had in the region. I was one of the regional fellows, and years back, they asked if I would be willing to run the Swami's birthday program. And I said, okay, I will accept it, not a problem. And this is going to be done in a very grand way. And so we had about, I think, 900 people that came that day for Swami's birthday. But more relevant is how the whole thing took place. And of course, we leave it at his feet and he does the rest. But my job is to listen to and attentively to all the hearts that are telling me what they like, what they don't like, because Swami is in everybody. And that game plan has helped me out quite a bit. So what happened was we had this program for Swami's birthday. And so early morning, everybody goes because it's, after all, devotees in the region that come, and everybody was doing their job. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to go and show my slides because they have to be extremely valuable because these were taken in the 60s. And when I put them up, lo and behold, the pictures are beautiful. But when the arati was on, where I had seen Swami, Swami was missing. And I couldn't fathom what he had told me in that magazine and how he impacted me. He impacted me by giving me the confidence that I am a technologist. I can do what is appropriate. Finally, though, it is his will. So for a scientist to shape up and say, this is how things come together, but Baba can change it. And that is how he cures people as well. Because after all, the techies that are there will say, you got this, you got this, you got this, and therefore your lifeline is going to be like this. And my friend, you are on your way downhill. But Swami can say, canceled. How does that work? Incredible man that Swami is. But, but it doesn't mean he doesn't like me, but he just gave me a glimpse of the powerhouse that Swami is, which is what I remember. As much as you and I are one, I know he is that one that I want to be. It's like the Taylor series that says, mathematically, we all approach that place, but we never quite approach it. But I really think that's what he's teaching me. So I can go through all the excursions of how my thinking process is impacted by him. But, when it was getting close to the opening ceremony for Baba's birthday, one young girl that day walked up to me. Surely, I would say about 8 years old. And she said, Sai Baba. Expressions of love and dearness sometimes is just in the language and the way we communicate. I was floored. I said, really? Do you think he's coming? She said, yes. He's going to sit on that chair. She was very confident. And here I am still getting ready to make sure the bells and whistles, everybody's doing the decoration, the food team is working, all of that is happening. But you see, she had the innocence and the mindset, and she continued to play. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the program, I said, I got to find this young lady because she was the one that told me Swami is coming. And I want to go and ask her, do you see her now? Do you see the Swami now? But I couldn't find her in the entire hall. But nevertheless, she had walked in and said, Sai is going to come and he's going to sit on that chair. So that was phenomenal. So the program comes to an end. My learning has already happened that it is his will. And then others can also see Swami. It's not just me. I mean, that's the whole thing about God. God is not for any one person. No matter how close you are to Swami, he is in everybody's pocket, everybody's heart. All that we have to do is to go with him, and then you will find him. And then, the program came to an end. And as luck would have it, and typical of the Sai engagements, everybody starts to pair up and everybody's taking things down. One of the gentlemen came to me and said, hey, Srinivas, there is a person that is looking for a ride to go home. And he looks like he lives very close to you. I said, are you sure? Because, we live in the boonies, and boonies really in a very positive way. We live in a very good neighborhood, but it is very secluded. We live in the woods. And he said, well, he says he lives in this town called Saratoga. And I said, awesome. And I'll be happy to give him a ride back. And lo and behold, so the man comes to me and he says, so I asked him, as typical, I thought he was a Valley fellow. And I said, okay, so what is your name? He said, my name is Krishna. I said, my God, this must be something very special. Because that young lady had told me Swami is going to be here. He's going to sit on that chair And Swami had revealed himself to me through the pictures that it is his will. He can do what he wants. And I'm telling myself, awesome, let me experience this as well. And I always pray to Lord Krishna. And because to me, Sai is Sai Krishna. And yeah, we have our own God sets, but it doesn't make a difference whether Sai is Jesus or Krishna. So I said, really? He said, yeah. And I asked him, where do you want to be dropped? And he said, this address. And literally, it's on my street. And I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I live right there. And I said, there are no homes. He said, yeah, I know that, but I want to be dropped there. And so he came with me, and I'm doing my prayer in my heart, saying to Swami, what is this? Why are you doing this? There must be some learning. So I made small petty talk, do you work in the valley? He said, yeah, I do. And I said, this whole street, there's not a single light. And you want to be dropped at this place? He said, yeah, this is where I live. I said, I don't see any homes. He says, don't worry, but this is where I live. And so to this day, he has escaped my sort of mind as to how on earth, on Swami's birthday, does this gentleman, he was not old, he wasn't young. I was one of the younger fellows running the birthday program that day, but I don't know. And in our street, there are no lights. In the whole town that we live in, there are no street lights. And the program got over close to 9 p.m. and it was pitch dark. In November, it gets very dark. But this gentleman says in the woods, his name is Krishna, and he wants to be dropped off right there. And I asked him again, are you sure you'll manage yourself? He says, no worries, just drop me here. I'm home. That was another way that Swami communicated. But what I wanted to beat on was really Swami is the lotus, and Swami wills, and that happens. Swami is the source, and we have to learn to gravitate towards him in every being by remembering the goodness that they have done, and to literally kind of cut off the fact that somebody maybe did something wrong to you or not, because those were the times when they were not Swami. That was the small I that is in their chest that says, I am this. But the reality is that I that Swami speaks to us about, and the occasional times when he makes me feel I know it all, is that big I, which is him in my heart telling me, what are you afraid of? Why fear? I am with you. And I can take you through this excursion through my life and tell you so many anecdotal pieces that says, Swami is, period. Why fear? Okay? Silent.